Soul is a movie that is currently streaming on Disney Plus. It is a Pixar animation. The movie was co-directed by Pete Docter, who also directed Up, and Kemp Powers. And it was co-written by Pete Docter, Kemp Powers, and Mike Jones. And here's the official synopsis of the movie. Quote, "What makes you you? Pixar Animation Studios' all-new feature film, Soul, introduces Joe Gardner, voiced by Jamie Foxx, a middle school band teacher who gets the chance of a lifetime to play at the best jazz club in town. But one small misstep takes him from the streets of New York City to the great before, a fantastical place where new souls get their personalities, quirks, and interests before they go to Earth. Determined to return to his life, Joe teams up with a precocious soul, 22, voiced by Tina Fey, who has never understood the appeal of the human experience. As Joe desperately tries to show 22 what's great about living, he may just discover the answers to some of life's most important questions." Now, I want to touch on a little bit the all-star cast that did the voice acting for this movie, starting with Jamie Foxx, who is just an incredible talent, both in comedic acting, dramatic acting, comedy in general, music. He's the voice of the main character. Tina Fey is the voice of 22, which is the soul that doesn't want to return back to Earth, doesn't get the appeal of living. Then you also have Ms. Felicia Rashad, who plays Jamie Foxx's mother, aka Mrs. Huxtable. You got hilarious Donnell Rawlings, which is a stand-up comic, has a podcast if you guys want to check it out, the Donnell Rawlings podcast. He's one of the main openers for Dave Chappelle. He's in this. Questlove is in it. Angela Bassett's in it. And it just goes on and on. It's really a dope cast. But yeah, the story is playing with the concept of some of life's biggest questions. Why are we here? What is our purpose? What is the meaning of life? And it does so through the lens of our main character, Joe Gardner, who is this struggling jazz musician, very passionate about playing jazz, but needs to pay bills, so he becomes a part-time middle school band teacher and just tries to get gigs on nights and weekends. He's from Queens, New York, by the way. Shout out Queens. And he's pursuing this I want to make it as a jazz musician dream, much to his mother's chagrin, because his father was also a musician, and his mother saw his father struggle in that life, struggle to make it, struggle with disappointment. His father, who has since passed. And she has a small tailoring shop where, she tailors clothing. She mentions in the film how, most of the times she was the one paying the bills. She's just worried that once she passes away, that our main character, Joe Gardner, is not going to have someone to help support him and pay his bills if this dream of his does not pan out. So in the very beginning of the movie, while he's teaching his band class, the principal passes by and actually tells him, "Congratulations, you are now a full-time teacher. You have benefits, you no longer have to worry about working part-time, etc." And to most folks, I would imagine in that position, going from a part-time gig to a full-time gig, that would be good news, welcome news. And although he accepts it, he does so reluctantly, with a bit of a realization of, oh my God, is this going to be my life? Am I not going to make it in terms of playing jazz? And so after school, he, passes by his mother's shop and tells her the news, and, she's thrilled, she's happy, and doubles down on you're telling them that, yes, that you are taking this, right? And then you're setting aside those dreams of becoming a jazz musician. And again, while he hesitantly agrees, to appease her, he gets a phone call from an old student of his that he taught in his band class that is now playing drums for a famous local saxophonist called Dorothea Williams. And what Joe plays is the piano. So the student tells him over the phone, "Hey, Mr. G, I just want to tell you that I actually got a gig playing with Dorothea Williams. It's all thanks to you. Because of you is why I even stayed in school and fell in love with music, etc., etc." And Joe tells him how awesome that is, and that, oh my God, if he ever got a chance to play with Dorothea Williams, that he would die a happy man. And his old student tells him, well, today's your lucky day then, because she actually is looking for a new pianist, and I mentioned your name. So if you can come by such and such jazz club for her to hear what you do, no promises, but maybe, she'll bring you on as part of the quartet. So he's like, what? That's amazing. He flips out, and then he heads over to this audition. And by the way, Pixar is dope. Like they're known for their animation, obviously, right? And how realistic everything looks. To me, I feel like they double down on that with this film in terms of like the feel and the look of the city, like aesthetically, like the street, the buildings, just like everything just seemed so authentic and so real. It was super dope. So kudos to them for that. So then he goes to this audition. He's like a little starstruck, but he starts playing. You see him like fumbling a little bit in the beginning, and Dorothy is like not impressed at all. Then he just like gets in the groove and starts playing. He starts feeling the music. He starts getting into the zone, into a flow state, which we got a little taste of before when he was teaching his class. And there was a student in the class that was playing the trumpet or trombone. I think it was a trombone. She kind of got like lost in the music and started like improvising a little bit. And the class started laughing or whatever, but he explained to the class that that's a good thing, what she's doing. And then he got, it tells the story of how he fell in love with jazz music. And then while he's playing the piano and telling the class that story, he like gets lost in the music and goes into this like flow state. So that happens again when he's auditioning for Dorothea after she's not impressed, etc. And then she's like, oh shit, where the fuck have you been? And she, as well as his old student, which is playing the drums, and the other person that's part of the quartet, which is playing the bass, I believe, are just like standing in awe to how he just played. And she pretty much welcomed him to the quartet and said, go get a suit, come back. Tonight's gig is at 9, and at 7 o'clock we do a sound check, so be here by then. So he's obviously over the moon, happy as shit. He's getting his big break that night, completely out the blue. He walks out. He's walking through the city. He's on the phone. He's super excited. He's talking to somebody about the gig that he just got, etc. And you see he's not really paying attention to his surroundings. And like a car almost hits him, then a bus almost hits him, then something just like falls off the side of a building, some bricks or something, and almost hit him. And he's just like walking aimlessly, super excited. Then when he starts paying attention to his surroundings, he's like, oh shit. And he like sidesteps a car or a moped or motorcycle or something. And then he's like, wow, like close call kind of thing. And then he takes another like step or two and falls down an open manhole and dies. So then from there, you just see his soul, which is like this blue, flowy looking humanoid kind of thing. He's like, picture outer space or picture like the cosmos. And he's like on this flat treadmill that's automatically going towards a big bright light. And there are other souls on this treadmill. And he's asking people, what is this? Oh my God, am I dead? I can't die. Well, what is this? And some lady tells him that this is like the path to the great beyond. He's like, what? And he's like resisting it. He's like, no, I can't go. And he starts like walking away from the light. Something hilarious that happens is that he's like, what? No, I can't be dead. This can't be happening. And then, some of the spirits like float up into the light when they get to like the end of the escalator thing. Then you just hear bzzz, like a bug zapper, like when they hit the light. And he's like, what the fuck? He doesn't curse, but he kind of has like that kind of reaction, like, what the fuck was that? And then there he's like, hell no, I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge. And then he's like resisting and running backwards, jumping over other souls and through the crowd. And he winds up like accidentally falling into what they call in the movie the Great Before. So instead of like accepting death and going to the Great Beyond, he resists it and goes into this place that's called the quote-unquote Great Before. And this is the place where souls pick up their character traits and their quirks and their personalities, and they have, these experiences. And once they have like a full range of experiences and they find their quote-unquote spark on, like what makes them want to live, then they're able to go through the Earth portal with their Earth pass and go back into a body, or go into a body on Earth. And there is a role for souls that are in this like in-between place to become mentors to other souls. And since he kind of makes it there by mistake, he like finagles his way into becoming a mentor, and he's asked to be the mentor for a soul named 22, which has no interest in living. She just wants to like aimlessly be a soul that's in this in-between place. She doesn't see the reason for wanting to live. And, later we find out that she's just like afraid of living and kind of like comfortable in the little box of existence that she has carved out for herself. But he's happy to become her mentor because since she doesn't want to go back, he says that he's going to help her obtain her Earth Pass, find her spark, which she has to do by being inspired by something that motivates her to want to live. And then she agrees to just give the Earth Pass to Joe, who desperately wants to get back to his body because he wants to do so in time to make it to this gig that is the moment that he's been waiting for all his life. I like also in the movie that during this period when they're in the great before, there are like a bunch of witty jokes, and it shows like 22 going through several different mentors like Marie Antoinette and Abraham Lincoln and Freud and Carl Jung. And there's a bunch of like witty little jokes within their interactions, which I appreciated. Like one, for example, is she asks Abraham Lincoln if he's upset that he's on the penny. And he's like, no, it's an honor to be on any, form of money or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, really? Because Andrew Jackson's on the 20. And then Abe flips out and he's like, Andrew Jackson, what the fuck? Minus the fuck because, it's a Pixar movie, so there's no cursing in it. But he's very upset about that. Anyway, they go through a bunch of the usual experiences that you can do. There's something called the Hall of Everything where you can experience everything there is to do in life, like play basketball or eat pizza or shoot archery, and you get to test everything to see what is something that gives you that spark, something that makes you want to, play music, something that makes you want to live. And they did everything, and 22 is just like, so yeah, I told you, nothing gave me that spark. Like, I didn't want to do anything. And long story short, or at least a little shorter because still got a ways to go here, they find this like soul connector, fixer, shaman guy that is able to help them out and try to get Joe back into his body. And they go through these rituals, and Joe is like in a rush like the entire time. And even in these types of interactions where he's already like he's dead and he's finding a way to get back into his body and live again, he's not even doing that the quote unquote right way that it's normally done. And he's cutting corners. And even within this situation of the guy that's going to help him cut the corners to get into his body, he's even rushing that. And it's just a testament to the very myopic mindset that he has of, this is my dream, this is what I got to do, I got to get back at all costs, nothing else matters, type of mentality that the character has in the beginning and throughout most of the movie. And they open up this portal to his body, which is lying in a hospital with a quote-unquote therapeutic cat that somebody brought into his room that's nearby. He's in such a rush, even though the shaman's like, all right, give it a few more minutes, let the connection be stronger. He's like, no, but I see myself right there. He jumps and dives in, but in doing so, he knocks in 22 as well into the portal, and he winds up going into the body of the cat while 22 winds up going into his body. So then, Joe still has his one-track mind. He's like, all right, fuck it, we're going to make this work. You're in my body, I'm in the body of the cat. Just do everything I say. We got to get you ready, get you to this gig so you could play, just be part of the band, then we'll figure out how to, switch bodies like later on or whatever. And it's interesting because the mentee, even though, she didn't want to be there, but she starts experiencing life through being in Joe's body. And she smells and tastes pizza for the first time. And she starts getting an appreciation of music, and she tries different foods and looking up at the sky and at the leaves. And she starts getting this appreciation for life that she's like, oh shit, this isn't that bad. Then there was another interesting scene when one of Joe's students passes by for like tutoring or like a lesson. He kind of tells 22, which is in his body, to, get rid of her, tell her that we can't do it today. And 22 goes to talk to her a little bit. And the student is Connie, the one that got lost, playing the trombone in class, that she got like lost like into it. She's pretty much saying, I hate music. I don't want to do it anymore or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And like 22 is kind of like of that mentality. Yeah, music sucks. Don't do it. Don't do anything you don't want to do. Then she's like, yeah, but can you just listen to this one thing that I was working on? And if you don't like it, then I'll just quit because I don't want to do this anyway or whatever. And then she starts playing and again gets like lost in it and plays good. And then 22 in Joe's body tells her, oh, that, that was pretty good, etc. Connie in turn says, so maybe, maybe I shouldn't quit. I'll just, continue to work on it a little bit. Connie, being, 12-year-old kid is just like looking for encouragement and, battling the self-doubt that we all deal with at all ages, but definitely is exacerbated more in adolescence before you know more of like who you are and what it is that you want and stuff like that. And then 22 sees that transition of Connie going from, I hate this, I'm going to quit music, to, you know what, I do like it, I am going to, stick with it and keep doing it. And it kind of makes her, coupled with all the experiences that she's been having, these new experiences of, tasting the pizza and looking up at the sky and appreciating the leaves and stuff like this, that maybe living isn't that bad. Maybe there is something to this whole like living thing and, not being so morose and skeptical all the time. And what I thought was an interesting like juxtaposition of characters was Joe's previous student that was singing him praises and got him the gig that would quote unquote change his life, who only went to school because of Joe, versus the experience of the current talented student, which wants to like quit music but knows that it's her thing, and how he's in this narrowly focused, selfish mindset, not realizing how he has touched students in the past and has been such a positive influence and is touching students now and has the ability to either be another positive influence or a complete detrimental influence in, discouraging this girl. And I just thought that was like an interesting juxtaposition between those two characters. But anyway, Joe has to get fresh, so he, gets puts on this like old suit which doesn't like fit as well, and goes to the barber because he tries to like have the cat being Joe tries to line up 22's hair, but like fucks it up obviously because it's a fucking cat, and they wind up going to the barbershop, and the barber's played by Donnell Rawlings, and this is like another like realization moment for Joe. Because what's interesting is that Joe being in the body of the cat, which is obviously following around his body and, telling 22 like what to do and what to say and stuff like that most of the time, he's able to be kind of like a fly on the wall with the people that are in his life, but he gets to see them from like different points of view because, 22 is doing the talking and he's forced to do more of the listening. And also 22 asks questions and things like that he normally wouldn't, because he was more like focused on shit that he was into and what he wanted to talk about, etc. So he goes to the barber, which he explains to 22 is somebody that he's been going to for years, and it's somebody that was like definitely born to be a barber, that, being a barber must have been his soul's spark. And then in speaking to him, he finds out that the barber, played by, again, Donnell Rawlings, actually had a dream of being a veterinarian. But when he got out of the Navy, which, by the way, Donnell Rawlings was actually in the Navy, so I'm not sure if they wrote that in on purpose, but if they did, it's cool. If not, a pretty cool coincidence. He finds out Donnell wanted to be a veterinarian, but when he got out of the Navy, his daughter was sick, and he couldn't afford veterinary school, so he went to barber school, which was cheaper. Joe, hearing this from the perspective of, somebody losing their dream of becoming a veterinarian, like apologized and said, oh my God, I'm so sorry that you're unhappy and weren't able to fulfill your dream. And then I was like, whoa, slow your roll. Who the hell said I'm unhappy? I'm fucking happy as hell. Happy as a clam, I believe is the term he used. Because he explains, he gets to speak to a bunch of different types of people and find out what's going on in their lives, and gets to make them look fresh and, make them happy and satisfied. And he learned to love what it is that he does. And that was like a scene and a realization for Joe's character that plays into that theme of missing the forest of his life for the trees of his dream, if you will. Then he finds himself having another like character developing moment where he confronts his mother about her not supporting him and, following this dream of his. He's able to see and like listen to his mother's point of view, being in the body of the cat, while 22 does a lot of the talking. He sees it, from her perspective, and, she's just like worried more than anything else about him not being able to pay bills, etc. But they come away from that conversation with understanding each other a little bit more, and him saying that, you know, this is his reason for living, and he would feel like his life was a complete waste if he didn't pursue it. His mother realizing probably that he had a lot of what her husband, his father, had as well, that he felt like that passionately about it. She kind of sort of gives him his blessing, and his father's like old suit, which looks a lot better than the suit that he had on. So that was definitely like cool to see as well. Then something happens, and on his way to the gig, or like him chasing after 22, because 22 doesn't want to. 22 comes to the realization that she wants to live. She like has her spark, and then him chasing after her, they like slip and like die again. The souls go back to this great before, and 22 now has her spark. She found her spark, but they're at odds with each other. She's like, she wants to live, but he's saying, you only want to live because you experience life through like my eyes. It's really my life. Yeah, you don't really care about any of that stuff. You just feel like you found your spark because you were living like as me, through the stuff that I love. And she's kind of like upset about it, and she doesn't want to give up the earth mask, but then she's like, fuck it, and chucks it at him and disappears. He was about to throw it back, but she like disappeared, and he's like, fuck it, let me go make it to this gig. I could still make it. Goes, makes it to the gig, has the show of a lifetime. His mother's in the audience, everybody sees it. He gets into that flow state again while he's playing, and it's everything he ever dreamed of that it could be. Then when everybody's leaving the club, and he's leaving as well, he leaves, and he's waiting for a cab, and so is Dorothea. She's like congratulating him, it's his first night having a big gig, and enjoy it, take it all in, etc. And he's kind of like dejected, and she's like, what's going on? What's wrong? And he explains to her, he was like, I've been waiting for this moment my entire life. I just thought that I would feel different. And Dorothea gives him like a dope, deep, wise analogy, and just tells him this like little story, which is the story about a fish that's swimming around and saying that he wants to find the ocean. He asks every fish that he finds where the ocean is, and an older fish tells him, you're in the ocean. And the younger fish responds, this is water. What I want is the ocean. And then she just leaves him with that. And like that little analogy is playing again to that missing the forest for the trees theme of this movie. That was a really dope scene. So then Joe is flashing back and thinking about certain moments that he had with 22, and how she was enjoying life, and he was being like a killjoy and like completely self-absorbed, when she was saying things, hey, maybe like, looking at the sky and at the stars and the leaves, or, taking walks, maybe those kind of things can be my spark. And he was like poo-pooing that and saying things like, that's not a spark, that's just regular old living, which in actuality is just him taking life for granted. And then he's thinking back on moments in his life which he took for granted, like just playing the piano with his dad before he died. And his dad was old, and he was like sitting at the piano with his dad and playing the piano for him, and like eating a piece of pie, and like fleeting moments in life that we all take for granted. And he finally comes to the realization that that was living, that it wasn't just this dream that he had, that once he finally obtained it, just didn't taste as sweet. So he devises this plan to play the piano and get into this flow state again. Because again, when you're in that state of flow, as a writer myself, I could like appreciate this, because when you do anything creative, whether it be writing, painting, etc., you get into flow states, right? But the way they describe this flow state in the movie is the space between the spiritual and reality. So he does this so that he can get back to that shaman guy, which showed him initially that flow state place from the other side, and track down 22. And then pretty much tell 22 how he fucked up and how those things could be her spark, and convince her to live the way she had already like pretty much convinced herself that she wanted to. And he finally convinces her, and she reluctantly accepts, but she's like, but how about you? And he's like, I did it already. I lived already. She finally takes the plunge to go down to earth to live. And then he's back on the treadmill to the great beyond. And for his inspiration and his selflessness, he's actually offered another chance at life. In accepting that chance, he promises to make sure that this time around, he lives every minute of it. Which was the moral of the story. Be present, be in the now, be into the trivial things or the fleeting things that you may think are trivial in your life. Don't miss the forest for the trees. Although throughout life, there are going to be moments where you do miss the forest for the trees, but there are also moments of realization, similar to in meditating, when you're like focusing on your breath and you realize that you wander off in thought, and the goal is just to bring yourself back once you have that realization, bring yourself back to then focus on the breath again. When you have the realization of missing the forest for the trees, bring yourself back and remember to appreciate life. And although it is great, in my opinion, to have a dream, to have goals, to strive for things, as one of the characters tells Joe, your spark, that thing that you're into, is not your purpose for living. It's not your sole purpose for living. And she kind of like dismissively says, like, all you humans are so simplistic in that form of thinking. So keep that in mind, folks. Anyway, that is my review and reflection of the movie Soul, which is streaming now on Disney Plus. Cobra Kai, now